My system says we're being recorded and we're live streaming. Can you confirm? So shall we begin?
Yes, please.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Township of Georgian Bay Council meeting of October 11th, 2022. It is now 9:06, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. My apologies to everybody for the delayed start. There are some connectivity issues with a couple of our councilors, as well as even with a couple staff members. But hopefully we'll all get that worked out fairly quickly. We do have regrets from Councillor Hazelton. I'm afraid he's under the weather today and therefore was not able to join us. In the spirit of reconciliation, we wish to acknowledge the territories that we are on. Let me start that all over again. In a spirit of reconciliation, we wish to acknowledge the enduring relationship between Indigenous peoples and the territories they traditionally occupied. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection they have to this place, to land, the water, the sky, and all that live on, in, and above it. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this place and who continue to care for it. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today. May they guide our decisions and our actions. We commit to learn, to educate, to honor sacred places, and to take action towards real truth and reconciliation. I must mention that, of course, September 30th was Truth and Reconciliation Day, and I had the honor of joining the Moose Deer Point First Nations, actually on the eve of Truth and Reconciliation Day, and the Wata Nation on September 30th. And I greatly appreciate my time spent with them and in recognition of that day. I'd also like to add that last week met with the Muskoka Area Indigenous Leadership Table, where we signed a friendship agreement, which I think is a significant achievement. And I enjoyed the fact that I actually was offered a gift from Tracy Hendricks of the Moose Deer Point First Nation of some braided sweetgrass. And I think, if I may just borrow a little bit from the sweetgrass is often used in the smudging ceremonies that some of our Indigenous neighbors do. And it is to encourage, I'm going to call it a more positive, and it's supposed to get rid of negative thoughts and have a more positive meeting. And hopefully we can, that the sweetgrass that I now have can influence our meeting to keep it more positive. With that, I'm going to move on to ask the council members present if they have any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest or anything along that line that they should declare. Seeing none, I understand we have a 5-year service award for Ms. Woll. I don't know if she's going to make, though she is going to make an appearance.
I'm here.
I mean, unfortunately, we're not in the same room shaking hands and sharing certificates, but congratulations on 5 years service. And thank you very much for your service. You've been invaluable to our, services, and greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. And with that, consider your hand shook and your certificate presented, please. As
I will.
unceremonious as it may be today.
That's okay.
Thank you. And now we get on to the one of the big items of today, and that is our Consolidated Financial Statements from 2021. And I understand that Rebecca MacDonald from Pahapill and Associates will be presenting. And Ms. Boutiette, would you like to introduce this item?
Through your worship, as I zoom my camera properly, Yes, so we are proud to have deliver to you our financial statements for discussion purposes today. The reason they are not final is we always present them in draft form prior to having authorization from council to have mayor and CAO sign off on the financial statements.
All right. And with that, shall we turn it over to Ms. MacDonald? Ms. MacDonald,
Good morning.
morning.
I'm just going to provide a quick overview of the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2021. If I can share my screen here. Everybody see that all right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so this is our auditor's report. So we've audited the consolidated financial statements of the township, which comprise the statement of financial position, the statement of operations, statement of change in its net financial assets, and consolidated cash flows for the year then ended. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the corporation of the township of Georgian Bay at December 31st, 2021, and the results of its operations and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So it's a clean audit report. Nothing's come to our attention that the statements would be materially misstatement. So they are the responsibilities of management. Management's responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these statements and for such internal controls as management determines is necessary. And our objective is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement and to issue our auditor's report that includes this opinion. So I'm going to skip to the statement of financial position. So these are your financial assets and liabilities owed, and the non-financial assets, which are primarily the tangible capital assets. So the biggest change, cash and cash equivalents is increased by 2 million. Taxes receivables decreased by about 770,000. Accounts payables decreased about 500,000. Deferred revenues up about 300,000, which I'm going to take you to the note here. So this is your deferred revenue note 4, which includes your cash and parkland development charges, gas tax, and then there's some other deferred in there. And then it's supported by the restricted cash, which is also on the statement of financial position. The next one I'm going to do is the long-term liabilities, which is note 4, has decreased from 2.6 million to 2.4. Which this is your composition. The only change basically is the principal payments for the year. The tangible capital assets on schedule 1. So we've got additions of about 960,000 over here. Amortization about 1.9. The amortization is about $1 million higher than the additions. Normally, we like to see that the assets are being replaced at the same rate as they're being amortized. But as you can see, last year, your additions were about 3.3 million and amortization was 1.4. So it evens out over the 2 years. Back to the statement of financial position. Inventory has increased slightly. Note 7 is the composition of the inventory. Down here, the asphalt products, sand and salt, and there's a little bit of other stuff in there. And then the surplus, I'm going to take you to the surplus schedule. So there's a little thing, the reserves have increased almost $2 million. And then this just shows kind of what your reserves are, the balances, and then the other composition of your surplus. So you started with 26 million at the beginning of the year, ended up with 27.2. We're going to go to the statement of operations and the accumulated surplus. These are just a summary of your revenues and expenses by category for the year. The biggest thing is the user fees have increased about 1.4 million. Grants were down about 1.2. Miscellaneous revenues changed from 100,000 to 245,000. Which there's a note to support that. This is just kind of the composition of what your miscellaneous revenues are. So you can see where the changes in that. Back to statement of operations. So you ended up with total revenues of 11 million, total expenses of 9.9, which leaves you with the consolidated annual surplus at the end of the year of almost 1.2 million. So then the next two pages are your statement of changes in net financial assets and the statement of cash flows. These just give a detailed analysis of the changes during the year. And then pages 7, 8, and 9 are your accounting policies. So we've reviewed these for consistency and relevance to the township. There's no changes from the prior year. And then the balance of the pages are just additional notes with a little bit more detail. And I think that about covers it. Is there any questions?
Well, thank you very much. Well, others think of questions. My question to you is simply going to be any areas of concern. I know we got a clean audit, but were there any areas of concern with the financial operations and management of our township that you have made to staff?
There was no recommendations. Anything that we would have noted would have been on the post audit letter, and there was nothing identified. We review internal controls as part of the audit process, and again, there was nothing identified during the year.
I wonder if you would mind not sharing your screen anymore so that I can see everybody's faces. And I see Councillor Jarvis and Councillor Cooper. So let's start with Councillor Jarvis, please.
Yeah, my question is rather minor. I usually accept financials because I never understand them anyway. But yeah, when you noted the inventories on page 12, inventories held for consumption, and one of the items was sand and salt. And I know that in the consent agenda, we have an item with regards to sort of the same thing. Is the inventory value there a factor of the increased cost for these materials, or do we just have twice as much sand and salt as we had this time last year?
Ms. Booth, yeah.
Through your worship, it's a combination of both. It's quantity times price. So that that would answer that. However, sand and salt inventories, we do bring in a evaluator to estimate quantity at year end. So that would be how we determine the sand and salt inventory at year end. And it's very possible that we just had a higher quantity because this report that's coming forward on the cost is for this year's cost. So it would be inventory at December 31st, 2022.
Okay.
So they're kind of unrelated, but there was still an increase in price. We're just seeing an increase in price year over year, just in general. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the report, Rebecca. I don't know who wants to answer this, but in the spirit of being positive, it's very nice to see that revenues are greater than expenses. So that's positive, but clarification at 10,000 feet. It says that our revenues are 10 million. Why did I get the idea that our revenues are 20 million? Is there something that I'm missing, or I'm just often never land? Could you explain that maybe, Julie?
I see Ms. Anderson actually volunteering.
If I may, through you, your worship, you may be referring to the taxation revenue that we collect on behalf of ourselves, the district, and the education taxes. So that is a quite significant portion of our revenue, but we don't recognize that revenue in our financial statements. But we do recognize it in bylaws.
So just following up on that then, so effectively the 10 million expenses and revenues are about 50% of our total, is that correct?
About that, yes. So between I think municipally, the township collects 39 cents for every $1.39 or 31 cents. And the rest goes between the district and the education taxes.
Right, but anyway, the total's still is around 20 million. That's what we collect. Yes, we distribute it to various spots. I understand that part of it. I just wanted to make sure. And why do we, I'm just curious as to why we never refer to the 20 million, because that's really what we're getting. And just to sort of, when we do a financial statement, it doesn't include that. I'm curious.
Ms. Boutier, please.
Through your worship, the way the legislation is designed is that we, being a lower tier, are the collector of those funds, but they're not recognizable revenue under non-for-profit.
You just muted yourself, I think, or something. We lost you.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just, I'll restate my whole statements. Is designed is that we are the collector, being the lower tier. However, accounting principles don't allow us to record that full revenue and the related expenditure in and out in terms of assets and liabilities.
We're in effect a collection agent.
But just to clarify, we're a collection agent, but we're supposed to be collecting for services that we, in theory, get. So, you know, in other words, we send $10 million. Part of it's for education, part of it's for all these fabulous services that we get from the district. But we're not sort of putting that into the piece. I'm just trying to understand from a financial perspective, for reporting perspective. In fact, we send money over to the district for solid waste, for example, or roads or whatever, in the township of Georgian Bay, but it doesn't seem to get reported that way. I'm still trying to understand the reporting process.
I mean, if I may, because I don't see any other fingers. I mean, my understanding is we collect a 20 or 25 million, whatever it is, in taxes, of which, because we are allocated, it's usually just under, I think, 30% of it. We have to show how we spend that. The district statements show how they spend the money they collect, and we know that we're roughly 10% of the property taxes that district collects. And therefore, I suppose we could take the district statement, divide it by 10 and say, this is how they've spent our money, the money that came from the district, from our municipality. But I think to get to the other piece that we rarely examine is the fact that something like a quarter of our taxes almost go to education. And we know the school boards put out statements, but I think we very rarely have looked at how they are spending the quarter of taxes that are collected from the property taxes that are collected from our residents.
Thank you for all that, and it is interesting. I just think it's important for from a transparency perspective, for our constituents who are the ones that carry the weight here, 20 million bucks. It's important for them to understand where it's being spent. And I understand what we get locally, but in theory, we're supposed to be getting all those services, even education. We're paying for education for people in our community, in theory. So I think it's important to just make sure we tell that story. Thank you.
Ms. MacDonald.
Sorry, I can just add one more thing. Note 2 on the financial does show the school boards in the district, the amount you collected and remitted, if that helps.
It does, because I was looking for it and I hadn't found it yet.
Note 2, page 10.
Thank you.
So my recommendation is that we might want to blow that number up a bit. In other words, tell our communities what it is and communicate that. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, and it's basically that, note 2 is basically showing that in 2021, we collected and distributed roughly $15.2 million in the year. 10.6 million went to the district, and 4.6 million, I'm rounding, of course, went to our school boards. And I know from those school boards that the great majority of that money, roughly 4 million, went to Trillium Lakelands. And then that's a real ballpark figure. Mr. Mariotti.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Coetzee. If I can add to Councillor Cooper's point, which is a very valid one, I know that the Finance Department for 2023, when the tax bills go out, they're going to put a very clear, easy to interpret pie chart, if you like, or some other diagram that will show exactly where the tax dollars are going, because we do recognize that a lot of the monies that we collect here do go to outside sources to a degree. So thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, in very rough numbers, we collect $26 million of taxes, of which 11 million we're responsible for. Actually, no, we only collect 6.2 million of taxes. And so it's 21 of the 21 million taxes we collect, roughly 6 million we spend ourselves, and 15 million are beyond our control, but government mandated. Any other questions or comments? I have, and I'm going to change this to, oh, sorry, Ms. Boudiette.
I just wanted to say a big thanks to Celine and Colleen, who were a big part of preparing the financial statements this year because of, as you are aware, the acting positions. So big kudos to both of them for struggling through our 2021 year-end financial statements.
Yeah, if memory serves, you had a few other things on your mind when much of this work was taking place. All right, seeing no other comments, I have moved by Councillor Wienko, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved that Council approves the financial statements as presented, and that Council approves that the mayor sign the final statements. Any final questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right. And with that, Ms. MacDonald, thank you very much for all your work, you and your staff. And also, as Ms. Boudiette noted, thank you very much to our staff for all the work into these financial statements. And we can only hope that 2022 has as positive an outcome, though we know there's at least one item later on in our agenda that says it may not. So time will tell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. And I currently have moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that Council adopts the consent agenda of October 11th, 2022 as circulated. Any comments or questions, Councillor Jarvis?
Yeah, if it's all right with Council, I'd like to quick review on a couple items in the consent, items G, H, and J.
No, is that just for discussion purposes or?
Yeah, just for discussion. I don't
Okay.
think I have anything radical in just a couple questions and discussion.
Why don't we have that discussion and then decide whether we have to have a separate motion on them or during that discussion before we.
Sure, that's fine by me.
Any other items? Okay, Councillor Jarvis. Item G, Planning Committee, August 2022 resolutions. You had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that during that, and I know we've had discussions, so I don't want to dwell on this, but that planning committee came to us with a recommendation of an ICB with regards to H2s back after their meeting, and I just wanted to make sure that we properly acknowledged that while we chose not to go with the ICB, we did take into consideration very seriously their other recommendations with regards to that meeting. I just need to record it that we acknowledged very clearly their recommendations and the work they did with regards to H2s. That's all I needed to, the statement I need to make on that.
And I think we should add to that, that part of our discussions were enclosed and therefore we can't share those parts of our discussion publicly. But
Right.
definitely, that was definitely discussed in closed.
Yeah. I just want that acknowledged. That's all.
Okay. All right.
Next one was on H with regards to snow storage in Oak Bay.
Yes.
And I gather from the report that, again, I think this has been ongoing, but Leduc Lane becomes a snow storage area. And I just want to make sure that residents in and around Leduc Lane were agreeable to that arrangement. I guess they've been in the past, but I don't see that in the report.
I believe that report was prepared by Mr. Sokash. CEO Mariotti, would you care to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Coetzee. Mr. Sokash is also under the weather, so I'm gonna try and step in here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that the residents living actually on Leduc Lane were consulted, but I can follow up with Brad just to make sure that they are informed of this arrangement.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have them on side. I can't believe that they weren't talked to about it, but I'd like to make sure that was the case.
To the best of my knowledge, these arrangements are the same as took place in prior.
Yeah, previous years, yeah. Okay, and that was the only comment I had on that one. Then we had Jay. Again, I think this goes back to our. Hopefully I got my notes right on this. It goes back to the planning committee recommendations, and I just want to make sure we are properly moving ahead. Are we getting an update by chance on where the staff is on the H2 lifting review? I think our CAO might be able to help on that.
Yes, there is an update forthcoming at the next. If Ms. Way can remind me, is it at the next committee of the whole meeting? No, there's going to be a special council meeting in,
that's only a special council,
November.
right?
Yeah.
We're now in November 4. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is it for me. Thank you very much for your
Any other
consideration.
Comments or questions? And I have moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved, the council adopts the consent agenda of October 11th, 2022 as circulated. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, that means, Ms. Way, was there anybody signed up for open forum?
No, there was not, Your Worship.
All right, thank you. And we can go to communications. And let's start with, I'm going to go to reverse order of last month. So let's start with Councillor Wienko, followed by Councillor Cooper, please.
I think you skipped ahead of adopting the agenda, but I guess you can do that afterwards.
Oh, you're paying better attention than I am. Thank you very much. Where did that motion? Why don't we do that then? And now, in your honor, I'll say moved by Councillor Wienko, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved, the council adopts the regular agenda of October 11th, 2022 as circulated. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for catching that, Councillor Wienko.
Okay, do you want me to continue with my communications?
Yes, please.
Just a few things. I attended the Ward 3 debate on the 17th of October with the two candidates. I also contributed to the Honeybee Festival by having to participate in the golf tournament with CAO, Councillor Bocek, and about to be Councillor Petco from Ward 1. So that was a lot of fun that day. We got to know each other really well. What else was there? There was a major meeting with the SSCA, the board meeting. There was a quarterly board meeting with them. And they should be coming to us shortly with their budget for this year. And it's going to be in the 4.1% increase for SSCA. So something for the new council to concern themselves with. And a number of letters on a few road issues, but they all went to Brad. And I think that's about it.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Cooper, please, followed by Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. You know, a lot of activity, but a lot of communication with our constituents who are continuing to raise concerns about planning matters and solid waste and you name it. So a lot of that. Did attend the candidates meeting that was held at Baxter Community Center. So that was nice to see some of the new players. And what else? For some of the new potential players, I guess I should put it that way. And finally, attending all my regular district council meetings. And that's sort of the end of that story for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, I'd hoped to go to the all candidates meeting, but had a bit of COVID, so chose to stay away from infecting people. So missed that, unfortunately. But other than that, really the big event was the Honeybee Festival, and being able to be part of that event, I thought was very valuable. And the event itself was extremely well attended. My spouse was a partner, and wife was part of the volunteer group, and counted in over 1,000 participants on that day, which was a significant increase over the previous years. So a good event, well attended. Of course, the weather was very cooperative, and that was it was nice to be a part of that. And the dinner that evening, I thought, went very well as well. But other than that, I've been getting calls and dealing with people who have issues over planning. It's ongoing, and we'll continue that way, which is good to hear from them and to hear their concerns. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas, good to see you. Glad you were able to connect. I know you were having some challenges.
Good morning. Sorry. Yeah. Had a few, I think it was actually the computer pinwheeling way. Anyways, apologies. Yeah, my month has been really quiet. I don't know if it's just the kids have gone back to school and everybody's dropped off from the lakes. Basically just a few conversations with residents, mostly on some on water issues being high. You know, not much we can do about that. That fluctuates. Launching of boats. We've got one customer that's got a problem with launching of boats that we're looking into right now, but I don't think we can do anything about that. It's not our ruling. And on planning issues, also, I've had a few phone calls on that. Other than that, it's been a pretty quiet, I would say a very quiet September.
Thank you. I have actually found myself being quite busy the past month. And I'm not going to not complain about that, but amongst other things, started with September 16th, which I probably am going to speculate was the longest committee of adjustment meeting in history, certainly the longest in my experience over the last 8 years. Councillor Jarvis was also in attendance there.
That's why I forgot about it, I guess.
Yeah, you want, but it was a very interesting and in some ways quite informative meeting. But it also reflected the fair number of applications that the planning department, with the help of our assistant or our consultants, have been catching up on a lot of the files, which I think is very good news. Attended the following day the all candidates meeting. That was and I found that interesting and good to see everybody and hear some of the the responses, especially from the two candidates that are in Ward 3. And, you know, I can, to anybody watching, this is just a reminder, if you're in Ward 3, please come out and vote. October 24th is the last voting day. Also, those who are in the near North School Board area of our township, which I think was the old Freeman ward, they should vote, because I believe the trustees, there's a choice to be made with the school trustee for the public school English trustee for the near North School Board. And I ended that day at the Docktails event put on by the Honey Harbour Association, where they were able to raise a fair amount of money to replace some of their docks. The following Monday morning, the 19th, I found myself trying to decorate cookies at Tim Hortons, which was quite humorous. But I'm very proud to say that when I brought a couple boxes of cookies over to the township to share with everyone, my ugly cookies went first. I don't know if they felt sorry for me or what it was, but they were gone before the more professionally decorated ones. But there you have it. Following day, I was introduced to some people from the Tesla organization, because they were doing some work in the area, and including a couple of people who were amazingly enthusiastic about their cars, and took me for a couple of spins. And too bad they're as pricey as they are. The Board of Health went on the 24th, Saturday the 24th, to the Georgian Bay General Hospital Foundation Gala event that they held at Discovery Harbour. And my wife and I quite enjoyed that event, and that they were very successful with their fundraising efforts, and I commend them for that. And with thanks, some of that support came from some residents of our township, and thank you very much. District meetings, Biosphere Board, and then yes, on the 29th, I was in the office with Councillor Jarvis tasting some honey, and this year Councillor Jarvis did not spill any honey on me, which I greatly appreciate. That was that was very interesting to sample in honey and try to be a connoisseur of honey, all the different flavors you can have. I went on the 29th, I went up to Moose Deer Point. I was invited to join them as they commemorated the Truth and Reconciliation Day. They chose to do it on the evening of the 29th because the 30th was not a holiday in the schools, for instance, and there were some school activities that some of the residents wanted to participate in, things like that. So they did it the evening before. It was a very, very moving time, I found, especially when the chief spoke, and her equating what happened in the past to the children that were part of their community now, and how they would never let this happen to those children, because it just, it's just unbelievable. On the 30th, I was over at Wata Mohawk Nation, and they did a walk from their administration building to their community center. And so I was very pleased to join them and share a meal, and had a good conversation with the chief there as well. And I was very, very glad to be part of these events. And then, of course, on Saturday, October 1st, was the Honeybee Festival. And for my measure, it was the most successful Honeybee Festival we've had to date. Attendance was up probably at least 50% compared to last year. And last year was up 50% compared to the year prior. So like through the one entrance, over 1,000 people counted going into the marketplace. We know there was another entrance where no counting was taking place. So who knows how many were there, but well over 1,000 people. And I think everybody enjoyed themselves. And the gala that evening, I consider quite successful. And first guess is that we will be successful in raising more money for the biosphere than we have in the prior two festivals. So it's I think overall a very successful event. And my great appreciation and gratitude to all the volunteers and staff that worked on this event. I think it was a great community event. October 4th, I had the pleasure of going with our CEO, Greg Mariotti, up to Perry Sound to have lunch with the mayor and CEO of the archipelago, Bert Liverance and John Fior. And I think we had a very good conversation, and a portion around it, which was the housing challenges that we face, not only in the Georgian Bay coast, but of course across the province, but of people who can't, not only are finding the affordability of housing a challenge, but the availability. You know, so many organizations, including ours, try to hire people to work, and they either have to reject the offer because they can't find a place to stay, or commute a significant distance. So I think that's something that we should think about going forward, how we can encourage development of attainable housing for many people in our area. On the 6th, I was at the, as I mentioned earlier, the Muskoka Area Indigenous Leadership Table. And that took place in Rama. That was hosted by the Rama First Nation, and where we signed a friendship accord. And I think that all of us were quite pleased, quite happy about this, that it was quite an achievement that we have this built up this relationships between the municipal governments and the First Nation governments, and it was very it's almost a celebratory event that we'd achieved that much in the last 3.5 years that we've been working together. So I really enjoyed that. And on the 7th, last Friday, a floating cottage meeting hosted by the Georgian Bay Association, and which has raised its head a little bit more the last few days with the activity of a floating cottage developer in Port Severn. And so that issue is obviously not going away. And I think we do have the attention of the provincial and federal governments, but that doesn't mean we have the results that we're looking for quite yet. And then one of the biggest challenges that was commented on then was the fact that Transport Canada still recognizes these floating accommodations as a vessel, in spite of the fact that they cannot be navigated. They're not ability to navigate themselves, if I can put it that way. And that's my listing for the month. Unfortunately, Councillors Hazelton and Bocek will have to wait for another meeting to hear from them. All right. CEO Mariotti, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coetzee, and morning, Council. So some updates from my end. Staff are working hard right now to put together the budget for 2023. So hopefully by the end of the year we'll have a solid draft to present to Council. On the HR side, we've started putting together an employee engagement survey that hopefully will be going out in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Also, in consultation with Councillor Cooper, HR and myself had a discussion with him on how to maximize our recruitment strategy and to become an employer of choice. So there's some good conversations there. I'm going to put my waste management hat on now, so I can report on the large item barging event. That was very successful. And I've got some numbers here. On a cost per ton basis, actually, this year was the cheapest event that we've had since, well, I went back to 2017. So we were cheaper on a per ton basis. Still a lot of money, $1,200 per ton. However, going back to 2019, for example, which was the last time this event took place, that was over $1,800 per ton. So we did pretty good. Volume-wise, not a huge jump. I was expecting a significant participation from the ratepayers, considering that 2019 was the last time that we held these kinds of events. But there wasn't a big jump in tonnage. I know that Present Island has suggested that they're okay to hold off on another event for another 5 years. So that's good. And I'm proposing that we hold off a similar event for for Cognisheen and the Madawaska Club into 2024. So skipping next year and then going into and then doing another event for 2024. Continuing on the solid waste side of things, we had a meeting with the District of Muskoka to share our thoughts and ideas on the marina bin sites. We still have some kind of divergent ideas, so we're asking to continue having meetings with the district as well as with the Ministry of the Environment to come up with a solution that is really more tailor-made for us. And so just a heads up, the ministry has given us a drop dead date of November 30th of 2026, by which time we have to have whatever system we have in place has to be officially approved and sanctioned by the ministry. So we do have a bit of time, but the clock is ticking. So again, we're working hard with Hutchinson Environmental. My understanding is that the district is also accepting of Hutchinson to continue discussions. So they will be continuing assisting us in funding, to retain these professional services. So I'm going to take my waste management hat off now. Going back to other items, I want to thank Ms. Way and the clerk's department for doing an excellent job. It's council election year. I know we only have one ward that is running, but we also have the school trustees who are running as well. So there's been a lot of work going on in the background. Ratepayers are still coming to us to check that they can vote or whether they can vote or can't vote. And so that's why there are lots of sessions that Ms. Way and Ms. Levesque have put together to try and educate and promote our residents to vote this month. Also a big shout out to Jen and Trish. Again, talking about the Honeybee Festival, they did a fantastic job, absolutely phenomenal job, together with the assistance of all the other volunteers as well. But the amount of money that was raised was significant. I'm not going to say the number just yet. We want to make sure that the zeros all line up, but I know that it was a hugely successful event. And what else do we have here? We have on the planning side, I hear council concerns about some of the planning comments that you're receiving. I'm receiving them as well. I just want to remind council we do have only 2 junior planners on staff, and even though we're working with consultants, it's not the same as working with seasoned professionals in-house. We have advertised for a manager of planning and a director of planning as well. But again, the market out there is tough. Councillor Jarvis sent me an article only last week about the issues that Collingwood, for example, is also being faced with. So it is a slow and windy road, but I do remain optimistic that we will have a good team in place here. And I'm going to pass on to Ms. Way now, the last little piece of my floor anyway, and it's related to a bit of a primer on how we foresee connectivity going with the new council, and in terms of having laptops and also in terms of an update on the AV system as well, so we can have these hybrid meetings in council chambers. So Ms. Way, over to you.
Great. Thank you. So I'm happy to note that the installation of the AV system in the council chamber is ahead of schedule. As we all know, this will allow us to have hybrid meetings, and part of these upgrades will be at the start of the new term. Each council member will be provided with a township issued laptop. This will ensure that the AV connectivity that each member has is compatible with the new system. This will also mean that members will have full IT support with this device. And further, it'll help make sure that members have personal privacy between the role on council and their personal devices, which is for their own protection. So in December, staff will be bringing forward a report recommending changes to the IT stipend that council receives now that the device will be provided by the township. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to make one comment and then I'll turn it over to Councillor Cooper, but I couldn't help but note, CO Mariotti, when you claimed that when the township provided garbage barging services that came at 2/3 the price of the district 3 years ago. And we know prices have gone significantly up. So clearly we are a more efficient deliverer, did I say that properly? Of services in at least some cases. So well done. Appreciate that. Councillor Cooper.
There we go. My goodness. Yeah, in fact, I wanted to talk about exactly the same thing. And yes, congratulations to Gregan for organizing this at sort of, last minute, more or less. And I thought that was superb. I will comment just that the volume may be down. Well, I'm quite sure it's down, and for a very specific reason. Lead time for our seasonal resident community. More warning in the future, I think, would be, not that you could have done anything about it this year, so I'm appreciating what you did. I just want to say for the future, as long as we can give them not weeks, but or days, but months lead time, A, and B, the time of year. I think, sort of mid-July to mid-August is when that's the high season. And so we need to remember that as well. And while I'm talking about the high season, just I'll get off my horse in a second, but just to comment in terms of planning activities and feedback from the public and public meetings and so forth, 85% of our population are tuned out after the end of September. And we need to remember that. It's just, so if we expect to get feedback and have special meetings that we want feedback, most are tuned out. So we have to think about probably jamming a number of meetings in during the high season. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, thank you very much, CEO Mariotti and Clerk Way for your reports. And now we have a staff report on the Honey Harbour Pavilion rink boards and lighting. And I know Mr. Sokash is not able to join us today. CEO Mariotti, will you be making the report in his stead?
They're big shoes to fill, but I will try.
A man of many hats today.
Yeah, I mean, this is more of an info update report. So we're going to obtain 3 quotes to put some boards at the Honey Harbour Pavilion. So I know Mr. Sokash has been out there already with one supplier to get some pricing. I believe he has another price. So we're hopeful to get that in place for this coming season. So that's good news. And the only other aspect is actually, since we've erected the roof on that pavilion there at Honey Harbour, it's only reasonable to install some LED lighting. So there's monies in the budget already, even though it was allocated to the Baxter rink. However, we're going to be installing some LED lighting there, as well as a couple of electrical outlets, just because you never know down the road, you know, if you need power for a gathering or some other event, it really makes sense to do that at the same time. And we're also going to make these LED lights efficient, because we're going to put them on a timer so that they don't get left accidentally on, 24/7. So that is pretty much it. There's really no additional impact to budgeted costs at this point.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Just a quick question for our CAO. If the money is taken away from the Baxter Community Center for lighting, I presume they need lighting as well, or replacement lighting. Is something going to happen later in that situation?
So the monies were put into the capital budget under the assumption that the lighting at the Baxter Community Center was not LED. In fact, it is LED.
Oh, okay.
So there's no point replacing LED with LED.
Something that works.
Something that works. So we're just simply diverting that money over.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? I have moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Cooper, Be it resolved that council authorize staff to vary from the township procurement policy regarding public advertising for the purchase of rink boards for the Honey Harbour Pavilion. And that the variation be that 3 written quotes are obtained. And that funds allocated in the 2022 capital budget for replacement lighting at the Baxter Ward Pavilion be reallocated for the supply and installation of lights at the Honey Harbour Pavilion. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. I don't believe we have any new business. Oh, Councillor Jarvis.
I'm sorry, I totally missed something under communications from the CAO. Can we just backtrack just for a moment with regards to the action tracker? I just have a comment or two on that. Would that be all right?
Sure. We're a very tolerant council.
Yeah, it's one of those days. One, I mean, I commend staff for having this report available. I think it's a great document, but it is a big document, and it's going to be tough to maintain. But there are certain items on there. I think it just bears review that if we have an item, and I know we do, with Tammy's name attached to it, and it's still open, that perhaps Tammy no longer being with us, we should be making adjustments for that. And then it's just observations. I'm not being critical or anything, just making observations. I know I had one other thing. If we can try and just make sure, it looks like most of the fields are now being filled in, which is a great help. I see that there was a note regarding monies to be given to associations for recreational programs, and that it was still pending under Brad's name. And I think the money's been it's already gone out, so perhaps those should be closed. I just again, an observation on my part. I'm sure it's very difficult to maintain this thing, but whatever we can do would be most helpful for the rest of us.
Thank you. Maybe we could just call those comments new business and it'd be part of the agenda here, because I don't think we have anything else for new business that I'm aware of. And therefore, we're going on to bylaws. And the first bylaw, I believe, is in regard to updating our non-union remuneration. I always have trouble with that word, remuneration. Remuneration, yeah. That's the word. Our non-union pay bylaw, and which I believe was discussed in a prior meeting. And the resolution reads, moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Douglas, be it resolved that Council enact bylaw 2022-082, being a bylaw to update the 2022 non-union remuneration bylaw, and that the 2023 volunteer firefighter grid be approved to remove the probationary step and include a 5% increase. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And then our second bylaw, I moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved, the Council enact bylaw 2022-083, being a bylaw for MLEO appointment, or Linsner. Any questions on appointing this bylaw officer? Councillor Rienko, please.
Just get a background on job, this individual, who is he and where did he come from, and et cetera.
Ms. Way.
I was just going to say, oh, perhaps Van Dam would like to speak. I was just going to say he was here over the summertime and we've just extended his contract, but perhaps the fire chief has more to comment.
Chief Van Dam.
Good morning, Council. Yes, this is a summer student with Cody in the midst of making some changes and trying to catch up on back reports that needed to be completed. The CAO and myself made a decision to extend his contract until we can fulfill Cody's position with a full-time person.
All right. And it's one of those appointments, even though it's a staffing responsibility, it's one of those appointments that require council approval.
That is correct, and with it is he can't write any parking tickets because he's not legally a bylaw officer. So we needed to get that corrected as quick as possible.
Fair enough. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? And that is carried, so don't park illegally anymore. Just my little warning to everyone. With that, I think the only other thing to do for us is to move into closed.
Correct.
And considering we're only about just over an hour into this meeting, an hour and 1 minute, I think we can do that without taking a break beforehand, if that's acceptable to everybody. So, Ms. Way, how much, Councillor Jarvis?
Sorry, could I request a bio break, even just 5 minutes?
Sure.
Your worship, well, we have to go into a new link,
Yeah.
so perhaps that'll give us some buffer time.
How much more do you want me to say in this link before we cut out? Because sometimes I try to cut out too soon for you.
I'm gonna say 10:15.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question. Other than reading this current resolution, is there anything else you need?
No.
Or, okay. So I have moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Where section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended provides authority for councils of municipalities to close a meeting or parts of a meeting to the public if the subject matter pertains to a matter identified in section 239(2). And whereas the Council of the Township of Georgian Bay deems it necessary to close this portion of the meeting in order to address matters under the following sections of 239(2). Closed minutes of September 12th, 2022, and legal files listing litigation, potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Now be it resolved, the Council of the Township of Georgian Bay moves into closed session of council at 10:08 a.m. All those in favor? All right, and let's start the actual closed at 10:15 for those who want to buy a break. Thank you.